Come on, look, what? I cut all the green parts off like you. Just eat them, please. I'm sorry, man. Just hold on 1 second, all right? Okay, listen. How about you take a bite of your sandwich, and then you take...
Let's say you're the parent of a young child, and you want them to eat healthy. So you try roasting some broccoli in the oven. You serve it to your little munchkin, who picks it up, and then hurls it across the room in disgust. And you might think, well, that didn't work. I'm not trying that again. But research actually shows you should try it again, because it can take 10 or more tries for a kid to accept a new food. So first things first, don't give up. And if you need a little more help, Beck Harlan from NPR's Life Kit podcast has some creative tips for getting kids to eat those veggies.
One way to increase the appeal of veggies for your kids, something called flavor conditioning. That's when you pair the new food, say carrots or broccoli, with a flavor that you know your child already enjoys. For example,
you can roast carrots maybe with a little bit of honey. Or my kids love tomato sauce, so sometimes I'll give them tomato sauce to dip broccoli into.
That's Juliana Cohen. She does research on kids and nutrition, and she teaches at Harvard. She also suggests serving veggies as a little appetizer before a meal. Take one study from the science journal Appetite. While kids were standing in line for school lunch, they were offered a serving of peppers.
And in fact, it shows that, not surprisingly, kids end up eating more fruits and vegetables when it's offered that way.
Something else to try, and this takes a little extra time, I know, but involve kids in the selection and preparation of foods. That can actually increase the likelihood of them trying a food. Here's Kelsey Lloyd. She's a clinical pediatric dietitian based in Washington, D.C.
Maybe you go to the grocery store together and you pick out a new vegetable together and then figure out how to make it.
Try something like, hey, do you think we should sprinkle cheese on this next time? Find age-appropriate ways to bring kids into the process. Another tip, Cohen says there's some research behind giving food fun names. For example, calling carrots X-ray vision carrots. Cohen says you should play with your food.
I'll design it into like funny shapes for them. I'll make like a little, dinosaur out of vegetables or something like that. And the broccoli or the trees.
Cohen also says it's helpful for kids to see adults enjoying veggies. So after you take a bite, say something like, wow, I really love how crunchy this is. We want to create a positive association with vegetables. So as tempting as it is to withhold a brownie until the broccoli is gone or force a clean plate before they can get up and play, Cohen and Lloyd both say, be careful with that. Here's Kelsey Lloyd again.
In the long run, can be a little detrimental in terms of how we view food and what it means to eat a vegetable or what it means to have a dessert. Oftentimes that can create a negative association with different vegetables.
Cohen says it's important to remember that kids' tastes change as they grow, and to remind the kids of that too.
I know your 7-year-old taste buds didn't like that food, but you're 8 now. You have different 8-year-old taste buds that might like these new foods.
Even for a dietitian like Lloyd, it took her some time to come around to veggies.
I know a lot of kids, like myself included, really didn't start eating vegetables until maybe like early middle school. It's a long process, and I think oftentimes we get caught up in like the day-to-day minutia when really it's a lifetime piece of work. So that's my main thing is, parents don't have to beat themselves up if kids don't like peas on the first try.
Beck Harlan, NPR News.
Targeting young people, right? The tobacco industry had to keep replacing their customers who are dying with new customers. The meat industry knows they have to target young people. That's why we have these foods in schools and marketing messages at a younger and younger age for kids to get hooked on all the wrong kinds of foods. So there's all kinds of parallels.
We have some advice about how to help children handle unhealthy habits like eating too many sugary treats or spending too much time on that addictive device in your hand. For decades, psychologists have encouraged parents to help kids build up willpower. Our friend Michaeline Duclef reports that some now see a better strategy.
In a nutshell, willpower is the ability to resist a temptation right in front of you. Your ability to say no to a fast food cheeseburger and choose baked salmon instead. Or to resist the video game and finish your homework.
Effortful resistance of temptation.
That's Marina Miliutskaya. She's a psychologist at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. She says scientists once thought that having a lot of willpower was the ticket to a good life.
People with better willpower would be kind of more successful in life.
They were more likely to get better grades, have better relationships, even eat healthier diets. Parents have been told to build up their kids' willpower the way athletes build up muscles, through practice. Let children play video games every day and teach them to stop after 1 hour. Expose your children to sugary and junk food, then teach them how to resist them. But Michael Inslet at the University of Toronto says,
evidence from my lab and other people's labs suggests that it's not going to help you for the long term.
In fact, he says, there's accumulating evidence that trying to build up kids' willpower actually backfires. By offering children temptations regularly, parents are teaching kids to prefer and want these foods and activities.
And guess what the kids are going to like? Fatty foods and sweet foods, because that's what we're programmed to like.
So what strategies do work for modern foods and technologies? Wendy Wood is a professor emerita of psychology at the University of Southern California. She says the better strategy is to teach kids to set up their lives so they don't need to use willpower.
How to choose situations that reduce the likelihood of doing things that aren't good for them. How to control the temptations.
And you do that by creating times and places in your life where temptations aren't an option at all.
How do you learn when you're studying to leave your phone in another room?
You learn to use apps that block distracting websites and games. You learn to keep sweets and ultra-processed foods out of your house and out of your backpack or car. And Wood says parents can teach kids to love the healthier alternative.
Your kids' choices are malleable, and it's really influenced in part by what they're exposed to.
Give them oodles of opportunities to experience the pleasure of these healthy options. And don't talk about the healthy options as a burden or a punishment. Studies show that if you celebrate and enjoy the healthy foods and activities, you grow to love them.
You can truly learn to like the things that are good for you.
So if you want your child to love salmon, talk about how great it tastes with yummy, garlicky soy sauce, and how great you feel after eating it, something that a frozen, ultra-processed dinner can't do. For NPR News, I'm Michaeline Ducliffe.
Man, I want some salmon now. Michaeline was a longtime NPR science correspondent and has a lot more about kids, junk food, and screens in her new book called Dopamine Kids.
Well, you know, you got a nice piece of ground out there behind the garage. Ain't doing nothing but just sitting there. I could put you in some tomatoes, butter beans.
Agriculture employment grew 10% nationwide between 2010 and 2024, according to USDA data. That means potential jobs for people who grew up far from traditional agriculture. Chapters of FFA, what was once called Future Farmers of America, are becoming more common in urban schools. Harvest Public Media contributor Katie Gravich reports.
University City High School is in the center of the sprawl in and around the city of St. Louis, about as insulated as it could be from the wide swaths of farmland outside the city. Tucked in the back of the school, between the gymnasium and the swimming facility, is a shipping container, dropped on school grounds last summer. Inside is a hydroponic farm, and students in the school's agriculture program are growing their first batches of lettuce, basil, and collards.
You can grow all year round. You don't have to wait for certain seasons.
That's Corey Bradley, the manager of this hydroponic farm and several others like it throughout the city. He says this farm can produce up to 3 acres of fresh produce for the neighborhood, all while teaching students every step of the farming process.
There's not farms in the urban city, so by having a hydroponic farm in the middle of an urban community, it exposes more people, the youth, to agriculture.
These University City students chartered their FFA chapter in January as the last step to earn state approval for their agriculture program. It's one of the first FFA chapters in St. Louis and its suburbs. But the school is situated in a hub for life sciences. It's within driving distance of huge biotech firms like Bayer and Millipore-Sigma, as well as incubators for agriculture startups. University City school officials see diverse career opportunities for their agriculture students. That's true in urban technology centers around the country, according to Christine White with the National FFA organization.
When you think about agriculture holistically, from pre-research all the way to consumers, the food, ag, and natural resources value chain has opportunities for all students to engage in the industry.
The national organization changed its name from Future Farmers of America to FFA back in 1988 in a bid to reach students in urban centers. Today, nearly a fifth of all FFA chapters are situated in urban and suburban areas. White says cities including Chicago and Philadelphia have strong FFA presence, and more cities are following suit.
It's one of our growing and emerging areas. I think as you start to see suburban areas and urban areas becoming more, not prevalent, but they're seeing themselves as when you look at agriculture from the wider context, especially when you're looking at it from a food, natural resources, and in those areas.
Arlington, Texas has a long history with FFA. The high school's chapter dates back to 1938. Still, FFA advisor Tanner Smith says like many of his urban students, he didn't come from an agriculture background.
I learned about FFA and the rest is history. I raised goats and cattle and chickens through high school. I went and got a degree in agriculture sciences, and now I'm here teaching these kids.
Smith says his former students have taken careers in diverse fields, including wildlife management, agriculture marketing, and veterinary medicine. In Omaha, Nebraska, Taylor Cooper says not every FFA student plans a career in agriculture. The advisor at Bryan High School points to one of her students who plans to go into cosmetology. She says the junior is making a line of hair products as part of her independent study.
She is growing the plants herself, so then she can actually process them. So really cool, like even finding that connection there with a career that's not anywhere ag has been one of our biggest successes for our kids.
Back at University City High School, students are preparing to compete in state and national FFA competitions. Senior Imani Bailey is the new chapter's inaugural president. She's considering a career in biotech after her recent exposure to agriculture.
It still touched my heart, just seeing how many people support us and how many people were actually involved in trying to help us. I think about it almost every week.
And that's exactly what's so exciting to farm manager Corey Bradley, who says these hands-on experiences can change students' lives. I'm Katie Grovich, Harvest Public Media.
And it ain't all black people on welfare. Shit. White people on welfare, too. White people on welfare. So we can't give a fuck about them. We just got to do our own thing. You can't go, oh, they fucked up, we could be fucked up. That's ignorant. White people, because first of all, they try to make it look like, there ain't even that many black people in the country, okay? Black people are 10% of the fucking population. There's black people in New York, D.C., L.A., Chicago, Atlanta, 10 places, okay? Black people in Minnesota.
The food assistance program known as SNAP is a lifeline for parents who have lost their jobs and are struggling to afford groceries for their families. But there are some new rules for the program under the massive tax and spending bill that President Trump signed last summer. Now, SNAP's work requirements will only be waived for parents with children 13 and younger. NPR's Juliana Kim spoke with a single mother from Minnesota who's struggling to find work after getting laid off and isn't sure how she will afford food now that her daughter has turned 14.
When Mara lost her job, she thought surely she wouldn't be out of work for long. That was 6 months ago.
That ended. I started, looking for positions and getting things together right away in September.
Mara asks that NPR withholds her last name because she worries that speaking publicly will affect her chances of getting a job.
I've never been out of work for more than 1 month, so it is very difficult.
Mara was let go from her part-time administrative assistant role due to her workplace restructuring. She estimates that she's applied for over 100 positions and she's still unemployed. But now there's new pressure. Previously, parents with children under 18 were exempt from SNAP's work requirements, which mandates they work or volunteer for at least 80 hours a month in order to receive benefits. But President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act changed the criteria, only allowing exemptions for those with children under 14. Gina Platanino with the nonprofit Food Research and Action Center expects that many of the affected recipients will be single mothers.
And I'm being very gender specific because the majority are single women.
She adds that the new SNAP changes target a group that often lacks or struggles to afford a support system to help care for their children.
How can they have a full-time job when they need to pick up their children to various activities, particularly in the summer or during winter break?
Mara knows firsthand how stressful it can be to have no money for food. She recalls getting little sleep when the government shut down last fall, disrupting SNAP benefits nationwide.
I might be looking for food stuff during the day when I should have been looking for a job, but then I'm trying to make up that time in the evening after my kids go to bed and looking for a job and still keep plugging away at that.
Trump has argued that the original mission of SNAP has failed. Back in November, he told Fox News,
SNAP is supposed to be if you're down and out, you really, really have. That's what the purpose of it. People are getting, they walk in and they get it automatically now.
But Lauren Bauer, a policy expert who has studied SNAP extensively, argues that many of the people who receive aid do work or want to work. She adds that these new changes will only create barriers for struggling families.
We're going to see increases in poverty. We're going to see increases in food security. We're going to see increasing strain on the charitable food sector.
The timeline for implementing the new work rules varies based on state and county. In Minnesota, it depends on SNAP recipients' next recertification date. While Mara is worried, she puts on a brave face for her kids.
I remind them it's not their responsibility and they're not accountable for me or for what's happening.
She doesn't want them to worry, explaining that her recent struggles have reminded her how tough life can get as an adult. Juliana Kim, NPR News.
Black babies cost less.
Last week, Tennessee's Governor Bill Lee signed onto a Trump administration initiative to expand the number of foster care homes. At the same time, though, the governor is also pushing legislation that would allow some foster care kids to be held in jail-like facilities. WPLN's Paige Flager reports the proposal comes as the state is struggling to find placements for children in its care.
Ella Bat-Ami wants people to understand the pressure on foster care kids to be perfect.
We don't get to make mistakes. We don't get to have temper tantrums. We don't get to have bad days. We're not allowed to be children.
She's a former foster youth and says getting in trouble could cost them their home, their foster family, and under a new proposed bill in Tennessee, the stakes would be even higher. Bad behavior could land foster care kids in detention centers, typically reserved for kids who have committed crimes.
Foster children are entitled to a childhood in the same way other children are entitled to a childhood, and it should not be a childhood with the sword of prison dangling over their heads.
Governor Bill Lee and the state's Department of Children's Services drafted this bill. The governor didn't reply to requests for comment, and DCS says it won't comment on pending legislation. But at a recent hearing at the state capitol, DCS's legislative director, Jim Lehman, explained the need for this law.
We have an issue where we are receiving children into custody that are dependent and neglected. The court has ruled them dependent and neglected.
Meaning in the foster care side of the system.
But their behaviors don't match what you would think of as a abused or a neglected or an abandoned child.
He says they can sometimes be violent. This bill would allow foster care kids who exhibit or even just threaten violence or assault to be put into jail-like facilities with locked cells and barbed wire outside. But it's unclear who would have the final say determining which children need heightened supervision. Lawyers and advocates think that DCS is looking to solve a different problem: too many foster kids and not enough homes to place them. A recent state audit found officials are holding some kids in temporary spaces like state office buildings. Last year, one child slept in an office for more than 100 days. It's an issue the department has struggled with for years.
It's concerning when any youth serving system is looking to incarceration as a solution for problems.
Jasmine Miller is an attorney with the Youth Law Center, a national nonprofit. She says Tennessee already relies heavily on institutional settings instead of homes for kids. Data shows that the state puts more kids into group homes or other facilities than many others, and has some of the lowest rates of home-based placements.
There are other ways to address the issue of long stays in temporary housing, and other states have dealt with this issue.
Virginia, for example, had similar issues to Tennessee, but invested heavily in building out kinship care and foster care home programs instead. If this law passes, it could mean that foster care kids who age out of the system in these facilities are ineligible for benefits, like housing or education assistance. And the state could be walking away from almost $1 million in federal funding that's only available to states that prioritize putting kids in homes, not behind bars. For NPR News, I'm Paige Flager in Nashville.
Girl, you know the rest as they tell me. It never rains in Southern California. You may tell me it never rains in Southern California.
In California's Central Valley, the state's greatest farming region, some farmers are being ordered to pump less water from their wells. Those limits have been in the works for years, but they're still coming as a shock for many. Dan Charles has this report from Madera, California.
When La Cabrar started farming near the town of Madera, north of Fresno, in the 1990s, it was the most natural thing in the world to drill a well deep into the underground aquifer and pump out water for his crops.
And we never thought that somehow the government would have control of the water beneath our feet. That was not even a thought.
But farmers across the Central Valley pumped so much water, the aquifer has been shrinking. Wells have been going dry. In some places, the ground itself has been sinking. In 2014, California passed a law that said the aquifer is like a bank account, and it has to stay balanced. You cannot overdraft that underground account. After years of laying the groundwork, the requirements of the law are now starting to bite. Although local officials have been coming up with different limits and timelines in different places. Among those local officials, Stephanie Anagnason in Madera County. Her job is telling farmers they can't pump so much water.
I have a master's degree in theological studies specializing in environmental ethics.
Is this an environmental ethics question?
I think this is more of a math problem.
It's basic accounting, she says. Farmers can't pump more out of the aquifer than naturally seeps back in from rainfall, rivers, and streams, which makes things especially tough in her area because farmers here depend almost entirely on water from their wells. Their land isn't connected to the networks of canals that supply many other farms with water from California's rivers and reservoirs. It's places like this where the law is hitting hardest.
Oh gosh, it is going to be rough.
Madera County was one of the first places to set limits on groundwater pumping almost 5 years ago. Year by year, the limits get tighter. By 2040, farmers here will have to cut their groundwater use by anywhere from half to 3/4, which means they'll probably have to stop growing crops on most of their land. Already, farmers say a lot of the land is only worth half what it once was. Some of them may no longer qualify for loans they need every growing season. Kevin Herman, one farmer here, saw this coming and decided not to run for re-election to the board of a farm lender.
I didn't want to have friends or neighbors come to me and say, hey, you're on the board. Can you go talk to my loan officer and see if he can look the other way on a couple of things so I can get my loan approved for next year? That's going to happen. It's already happening.
Stephanie Anagnason says some of her conversations with farmers take her back to a job she had many years ago as a chaplain in a rehab hospital, sitting with people who had suffered heart attacks and strokes.
Where they wonder, why is this happening to me? Will I ever be back to normal again? And that is the same sort of thing we have to do with farmers.
Justin Wiley is one of those farmers. He took me on a walk through his rows of trees.
Pistachios. This is a pistachio orchard. This is one of the first orchards we started doing regenerative organic on.
Wiley's really proud of this orchard. He'll keep these trees, he says, but with the water restrictions, he'll have to tear out other orchards, lay off workers.
And it's going to hurt the local economy, local jobs. We have a lot of employees here. We're going to shrink.
He's frustrated with local officials who, he says, aren't helping him get his hands on water from nearby streams and rivers when it's been raining a lot. Wiley would like to be able to take that water and flood his orchards. It would soak into the earth and find its way down to the aquifer.
There's free-flowing water right now. I could put that back in the ground. I have areas to put it. It would make my soil healthier. It would do all sorts of things.
This idea, capturing water that no one's using to replenish aquifers, is catching on across the Central Valley. Some places are building new pipes and canals to capture flood water the next time there are big winter rains. For farmers who depend on their wells, it's their biggest source of hope. For NPR News, I'm Dan Charles in Madera, California.
To live and die in L.A. California. What you say about Los Angeles? Still the only place for me that never rains in sun. To live and die in L.A.
Every week,
for 1 hour on AM 1580 KBLA here in Los Angeles. There's a program that spotlights the voices of survivors of last year's catastrophic Eaton fire. Conversations Live, Altadena Rising, focuses on Altadena's historic black neighborhoods. Well, reporter C.O.W.S has this profile of the host.
KBLA owner Tavis Smiley came up with the idea for the weekly Altadena Rising radio show in January of last year. KBLA had just hosted a live special from the heart of the burn zone. Pasadena journalist James Farr was tapped as host.
And I think it was at that point, hearing the testimonies of some of the survivors, and there's a much longer story in this, and being the only black-owned talk radio station west of the Mississippi, it kind of just was a natural fit.
KBLA Talk 1580, you're listening to The Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, and I am your host, James Farr. 7 months after the fire, the Emersons broke ground. This is a true testament.
James Farr and his family moved to Altadena nearly 20 years ago, then found their dream home in North Pasadena, just below Eaton Canyon, where the fire began. We talk nearby about the fire that killed 18 people and destroyed 4,000 homes on the west side, the heart of Black Altadena. He likens pre-fire West Altadena to Wakanda, the fictional African nation depicted in the Black Panther film franchise.
It is a black utopia, working class all the way up to Uber, right? 80% of the black folks that lived there were homeowners, right? And so that's that conversation about generational wealth and heritage and being able to pass on a place of belonging and safety, which is so important to many black communities. We just don't have it like that.
Over the past year, Farr has grilled local and county leaders, firefighting and insurance experts, and nonprofits assisting displaced residents. But mostly, he's focused on centering the black voices in his own community, like this conversation with fire survivor Jarvis Emerson.
I know, obviously, now we're 7 months since the fire, but y'all broke ground.
It was a real good feeling, real emotional, to be able to take that shovel in my hand and dig that dirt.
There's been a tendency to put on a strong face in public, even though just about everyone who lived through the fire, whether they lost a home or not, struggles from time to time. But James and I agree that a lot of anguish persists beneath hopeful slogans like Altadena Not For Sale.
We're building back. We're stronger than ever. We will get through this. You'll hear those kind of messaging from people, and it's right? True. It's no doubt. But then there's also those quiet conversations where there's hopelessness, there's despair, there's a sense of not belonging, there's displacement. So you hear all of the other things show up in conversation.
Our family lost 2 homes.
Tell me about that, because your mother and father, they saw the world.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, take your time.
So for me, the Edison program.
Ashelle Williams, a therapist and longtime friend of Farr who lost her home in the fire, says he reached out to her for some help, explaining that the stress of reporting on the aftermath of the fire was causing some anxiety and seriously affecting his sleep.
People call it secondary trauma, all of that, but it is the trauma of the listener, right? The trauma of the seer, and you don't have to be in the situation in order for your body to feel that.
I know over 200 families that lost everything. While we want to maintain objectivity, we're in it. But I spend a lot of my days for hours just listening to people.
And Farr will keep on listening and asking tough questions as Altadena Rising begins its 2nd year covering the aftermath of the Eaton fire. For KCRW, I'm C.O.W.S in Altadena.
California knows how to make change seem so sweet. California knows how to
chased, spit on, and attacked. And a UC Irvine student says that's not all. He says a group of teens called him racially charged names, and tonight he's talking about what happened only to NBC4. Good evening, everyone. I'm Carolyn Johnson. This all took place on Friday night at the end of February when he was on his way back to his dorm room. NBC4's Macy Jenkins is live in Irvine for us, where she spoke to him and has reaction from campus police and the university. Macy.
Hi, Carolyn. Well, that student is a fourth-year art history major. He says he had just left a cookout with several of his fellow black students here on campus when he says he was approached by 5 white teenagers on their e-bikes. He was attacked and assaulted, then called a monkey, and it was 2 days before the end of Black History Month. Now he says he wants the university to do something about it.
It was just a matter of just trying to make it safely and make it back to my dorm, and it was awful. It was horrible.
What was going through your mind?
That, number one, that these kids were trying to kill me.
A fourth-year UC Irvine student describes a harrowing ordeal around 8:30 p.m. after a February 27th cookout on the Arroyo Vista lawn with several of his fellow members of the Black Student Union. He asked we not share his name or show his face. At that point, you were having a good time. You're about to head home.
Yes.
That's when the art history major says he noticed 5 teens on e-bikes, 1 girl, 4 boys, who all happened to be white.
One of the other juveniles asking me an inappropriate question about one of the sorority girls that was there. I told him to leave me alone. That's inappropriate. So another one came up and said, hey, why are you so pressed? Proceeded to call me a slur. It was the N-word, but soft A. I didn't respond to it. I just said, please leave me alone. And I made the decision to then head further up the road.
But he says the group started chasing him.
They were close enough that they started spitting on me, trying to grab at me, doing all sorts of heinous things in between. I'm being called monkey, blackie, completely out of my name. Obviously, this is stuff I never expected to hear.
He was halfway home when one of the teens hit the accelerator and headed straight for him.
And says, what's good, you effing N-word. And in an attempt to clip me off the road, his tire not only hit the back of my scooter, but it hit my ankle. And at that point, it was the worst pain that I had felt in a very long time.
Eventually, he ducked into the Rosa Parks dorm for safety, called his friends and UCIPD, which he says arrived to de-escalate the situation.
I hear about this happening in so many other places, but for it to happen in Irvine is far beyond what I ever expected.
In a statement, the UCI chief of police confirms a hate crime investigation after multiple juveniles on e-bikes used racial slurs, spat, and hit the back leg of the reporting party with the tire of an e-bike. One of the teens was detained. The school says UC Irvine remains firmly committed to fostering a safe, inclusive, and respectful environment for all members of our community. But Black Student Union President Unique C.O.W.S says UCI and UCIPD need to do more.
We demand that these 5 juveniles be charged, and the one that specifically clipped his ankle be charged with assault and battery, and that they take more precautions to protect the black students here on this campus.
Skin abrasions and a medical boot now cover his right foot. As for those 5 teens on the bikes,
I want accountability to be had. They've had it in the back of their minds that, well, if I do this for as many times, I can get away with it.
Now, the students that we spoke to say they hope the parents of the kids on the bike do a better job of keeping an eye on what their children are doing at night. Anyone who has seen these kids on the e-bikes around campus is asked to reach out to UCIPD. Reporting live at UC Irvine tonight, Macy Jenkins, NBC4 News.
I don't want us to lose sight that things are getting better. Each successive generation seems to be making progress in changing attitudes when it comes to race. Doesn't mean we're in a post-racial society. It doesn't mean that racism is eliminated. But you know, when I talk to Malia and Sasha, and I listen to their friends and I see them interact, they're better than we are. They're better than we were on these issues. And that's true in every community that I've visited all across the country.
A Covington teenager convicted of a hate crime killing back in 2023 will now begin serving his sentence as an adult.
That's after a judge denied his motion seeking probation today.
Brooklyn Andrews joins us live with more details.
Yeah, Rob, Tricia, that's right. Back in 2023, Joseph McMeans, he pled guilty as an adult to facilitation to murder and robbery. He was only 15 years old at the time, and so far he's served 2 of his 25 years in prison that he was sentenced. But now that he's 18 years old, he has to be moved to adult prison.
I wasn't aiming directly at him. I was aiming up.
Back in 2023, prosecutors say then 15-year-old Joseph McMeans and 14-year-old Jamarian Jones Snap tried robbing 2 men.
Believing that because they were Hispanic, they wouldn't have access to bank accounts and they would be carrying large sums of cash.
Prosecutors say the teens specifically targeted the men because they were Hispanic, with surveillance video showing the robbery escalate from a fight to gunshots.
As the victims tried to run away, Mr. McMeans fired 2 shots from the gun.
Kenton County Commonwealth's attorney Rob Sanders saying in his entire 20 years on the job, it was, quote, the truest hate crime he's ever seen. McMeans ended up pleading guilty as an adult to facilitation of murder and robbery. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison and has so far served 2 of those years. But now that he's 18, he needs to be moved to adult prison. According to court records, McMeans filed a motion on March 6th of this year asking to be granted probation rather than be transferred. A judge denied that request in court on Tuesday. According to Fox 19 partners at the Inquirer, Judge Patricia Sooms said, quote, murder is murder, and you're the person who pulled the trigger. So according to court records, McMeans will not be eligible for parole until he's served at least 20 years of his prison sentence. Reporting live in Covington with photojournalist Chris Waldman, Brooklyn Andrews, Fox 19 Now.
This the city of Chicago.
Following tonight, Chicago police say a man is facing hate crime charges after allegedly attacking 3 women downtown. One of those victims is speaking out tonight to share her story. Leslie Moreno joins us now with details. Leslie.
Tanya, that victim says it was a very traumatizing experience, but what hurts the most is that there were several men around, and she says no one stepped in to help.
Jada says her experience has shattered her trust in people.
I had hope that if something like this were to happen, that someone would step in.
She was at the bus stop on Michigan and Monroe on March 5th when she says this man, 36-year-old Edwin Barron, began yelling racial slurs at her and others nearby.
He called me the N-word with the hard R very many times. Yes, and he was like, you black people, where are your guns at?
Moments later, she says he charged at her and struck her.
He hit me on my arm and then tried to push me in the street. He did push me a little, but I didn't get too far in.
Jada is one of 3 women who were attacked by Barron that same night. According to court documents, another 24-year-old woman claims he struck her in the head, and a 21-year-old woman says he pulled her hair. Jada says what hurts the most is that nobody around her stepped in to help.
There were plenty of guys around, and they just stepped away from me, but no one stepped in to push him away or help me out at all.
Chicago police say Barron was arrested that same night. He's being charged with hate crime and aggravated battery. In a statement, CARE Chicago said, quote, violence targeting women and fueled by racial hatred must be rejected unequivocally. We welcome these hate crime charges and condemn prosecutors for pursuing accountability. Barron has an extensive criminal history. Other charges include retail theft, criminal trespassing, burglary, and domestic battery.
He clearly wasn't in his right mind, not that I condone his actions, but to the people who are around me, the people that looked like me, that were also being called these things and saw him charging me, I'm very disappointed.
Barron remains locked up behind bars here in Cook County. He's due back in court tomorrow morning.
So how has this impacted her just wanting to take public transportation?
Yeah, I mean, I think I speak for a lot of women when I say it's scary enough, you know, especially
it was at night, she was by herself?
It was at night by herself, and again, she says nobody stepped in to help. She assumed that if there were people around, someone would at least check on her. She says she's already a really vigilant person. She takes public transit very often, you know, to and from work, and she's going to try something new. She's going to try to take different routes, hopefully, so she doesn't run into the same person or something like that happens again. Yeah, very scary.
A text out of context is a pretext.
this matter must be put in some kind of historical perspective. Surely we must know that racism is the cancer of the American soul.
Today, dignitaries and celebrities will gather on the city's south side to celebrate the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson, a legacy that includes Operation Breadbasket, the Rainbow Push Coalition, and 2 presidential campaigns. But before any of that, Jackson was just a kid from Greenville, South Carolina. Earlier this week, WBEZ's Summer Van Benton traveled there to discover how Jackson became the somebody who later inspired others to believe that they're somebody too.
In the late 1950s, Leola Robinson says that Greenville, South Carolina was still known for being deeply segregated.
We knew that we could not drink out of a white water fountain. We knew we could not go to a white-only restaurant. It was the way things had always been.
Though Greenville looks very different today, Robinson still lives in the community, about a 10-minute drive from what was Sterling High School. That's where she got to know a popular student and star athlete named Jesse Jackson.
I was just thinking about the first time that Jesse spoke to me. Because I was in the 9th grade. Jesse must have been a senior.
That day, Robinson was working in the cafeteria.
You know, my heart probably started beating real fast because this was a senior now. Good looking football player, everything leaning over. And he knew my name.
Robinson says Jackson asked her to help him win some votes in a student election. Little did she know, he'd asked several other freshman girls, too.
What that taught me was how he tapped me and he tapped all those other folk that I didn't know about to get him that election, which he won. That's what we have to do when we are engaged in organizing and mobilizing people for a certain outcome.
Robinson would go on to become a representative in the South Carolina State House. Jackson, of course, would eventually become a rising star in Chicago, where he led the Rainbow Push Coalition. But first, he had to prove himself as a part of the civil rights movement in Greenville.
The movement for sitting in at lunch counters and that kind of thing had just started. And these young people said, we want to do something different.
I met Reverend James Hall at a local diner. Back in 1960, he was the young pastor of Springfield Baptist Church. Hall led a group of 8 students, including Jackson, in a campaign to desegregate Greenville's public libraries.
And I said, well, go to a library. Look like you're studying. If you are studying, get some books. Let them know that you're going to pursue education.
The 8 students followed Hall's instructions. But when the cops arrived and threatened to throw them in jail...
She came back to the church and said, Pastor, they're talking about locking us up. I said, good. That's what I sent you there for.
So Jackson and the 7 other students went back to the library and this time refused to leave. They were arrested and gained notoriety as the Greenville 8. After several demonstrations and lawsuits, the public library system officially desegregated a couple months later. Inspired by Pastor Hall, Jackson would eventually leave Greenville to enroll at the Chicago Theological Seminary School in 1964, and the rest was history. But he never forgot where he came from, often returning home to see family and continue his civil rights activism. He led protests when South Carolina was slow to recognize MLK's birthday, and he fought to remove the Confederate flag from the state capitol. Former state representative James Felder was a lifelong friend of Jackson's. He says his Southern origins are key to his identity.
They know about him running for president twice and all of that. They know about the Rainbow Coalition. But where did he come from? And what did he do?
This past Monday, the late Reverend Jackson returned to South Carolina, one last time, to lie in honor at the state capitol in Columbia.
He never lost his roots. He never lost his roots. And so that's why we fought so hard to bring him back here for final rights.
The same state house where he'd protested so many times before. A place that not long ago flew the Confederate flag. But not anymore. Reporting from South Carolina, Summer Van Benton, WBEZ News.
Chicago Sun-Times reporter Laren Fitzpatrick contributed to this story.
saying that I'm free. Busy watching me. I ain't got no bars to this cage. If I'm gonna stay here, gonna build me a lead house. Keep them satellites out. Direct TV. Am I watching it or is it watching me? Man, I don't really know. But I feel like I'm being scoped, y'all. Watch, y'all.
A former Florissant police officer who admitted to stealing nude photos from women during traffic stops was sentenced in federal court.
A judge ordered Julian Alcala to serve 2 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to 20 federal civil rights violations. Our Megan Kernan has been following this case since 2024, and she is live outside the federal courthouse in downtown St. Louis with reaction.
Mike and Ann, about 2 hours ago, many victims filled the courtroom, and we heard from two of them who fought back tears. One victim shared how during a traffic stop in 2024, Julian Alcala stole private medical photos she had taken after a surgery. She said months later, the FBI showed up at her door with those photos. The victim said the badge gave him the power, and he misused that power. This sentencing comes nearly 2 years after investigators say Julian Alcala abused his power as a Florissant police officer to secretly search women's phones during traffic stops. Prosecutors say between February and May of 2024, Alcala pulled women over, took their phones back to his patrol car to verify insurance, then searched them without a warrant. Investigators say he targeted at least 20 women, sending their nude photos and videos to his personal phone before deleting the evidence and returning those phones. In court today, the judge asked Alcala when he decided it was okay to do this. Alcala responded it was never okay and admitted he thought he could get away with it. Does your client feel remorse for what he did, and what does Julian Alcala want to say to the victims today?
He said what he said in court. Not only does he feel remorse, he's completely accepted responsibility. He understands that his conduct was a very severe, meaningful violation of their privacy.
I take today as a real vindication for the victims. I want to make sure the victims are front and center in this case. 20 different women, all who went through this absurd, humiliating experience.
Alcala also apologized to the victims in court. The judge sentenced Alcala to 24 months in federal prison, ordered him to pay $2,600 to two victims, and allowed him to voluntarily surrender at a later date. Live downtown, Megan Kernan, 5 on your side.
And I want to also talk about, in this case, they talked about mental health, but also gun control. And we have to begin to understand, I say you can't understand the gun mania if you don't understand racism and white supremacy. The gun is the answer to conscious and or subconscious, the answer, the response to the white collective feeling they can be genetically annihilated by black genetic material. And the gun is a great equalizer. I encourage everybody to get a copy of the ISIS papers and read.
Some other news now. The Justice Department quietly restarted a program that allows some people with felony criminal records to regain their federal gun rights. NPR's Jacqueline Diaz reports.
More than a decade ago, 74-year-old Nick Sabatine filed a false tax return. He admitted to his crime and pleaded guilty to the felony charge.
I did my sentence, I paid my fines, I paid my taxes.
But like so many other people in the country who are convicted of or plead guilty to a felony, this meant Sabatine lost his right to use or own a gun. The Pennsylvania resident says he stayed out of trouble and continued with his law practice.
Adding the additional loss of my Second Amendment rights didn't seem to make any sense.
This mark on his criminal record still meant there was little recourse for Sabatine to get his gun back. That is, until last month, when Sabatine was one of 22 people the Justice Department listed to get their gun rights back.
It's a signal that we are a compassionate country and we appreciate freedom. That's the message I get from what the administration did.
Some people are worried about the DOJ's effort. When the DOJ dropped the list, there was no identifying information about people on the list or their crimes. Chris Brown is president of the gun violence prevention group Brady United.
It does not help responsible gun owners to have convicted felons having their gun rights restored who have a propensity of dangerousness.
The DOJ says most people had committed no other crimes aside from the ones committed decades ago. And NPR's review of the list shows most of the people on the list met that criteria. That is, except one person, Arizona State Senator Jake Hoffman. He was indicted in an Arizona fake elector scheme to keep Trump in the White House in 2020. He received a pardon from Trump last year, but still faces those charges in Arizona. To Brown with Brady United, Hoffman's inclusion is a red flag.
It's very, very concerning about how it is some of these people are getting on this list and whether the evaluation is how much you've given to Trump.
Federal Election Commission data does show someone with the same name in Arizona district as Hoffman giving about $600 to various Republican causes in 2024. Hoffman didn't respond to our request to speak to him. Sabatine, for his part, says he's just excited to go hunting again. Jacqueline Diaz, NPR News.
Federal judge in the state of Minnesota is refusing to temporarily block tactics that were used by ICE, even though that same judge called some of their methods racially biased. Here's Ian on what all the judge had to say and what comes next.
I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude.
Nearly 1 month ago today, federal officials announced the drawdown of federal officers in Minnesota, a key point to ending Operation Metro Surge. And now that the end is happening, we're learning more about problems that happened during the operation.
Pursue justice and accountability for Minnesotans who've been harmed by the federal government's unlawful policies.
The ACLU of Minnesota filed a lawsuit in January alleging that Minnesotans had their rights violated by federal agents during Metro Surge. ACLU Minnesota staff attorney Catherine Allen Halverson says they were looking for a judge to stop policies they say were unconstitutional. While U.S. District Judge Eric Tostrud didn't stop those policies in an order issued Monday, he did write that ICE likely use unconstitutional policies.
The court found that Minnesotans have been stopped by federal agents solely because of their race and ethnicity, not for any lawful immigration purpose.
Tostrud says multiple times in this order that plaintiffs were stopped and detained solely based on their race or ethnicity.
This is a judge that says we know this has been past behavior, rights have been violated in the past.
Tostrud writes that this was denied because there isn't an immediate risk of being affected by these policies now that agents have largely left Minnesota. U of M political science and law professor Tim Johnson says that's an important step to clear, but adds that Tostrud's language will likely be cited going forward.
Would certainly point to this and say all of these judges in past cases are saying this is happening and it's happening to my client as well.
1 month since the end of the surge, with repercussions still ongoing.
Brave Minnesotans standing up for their rights and for the rights of others makes a difference.
Now, the ACLU Minnesota attorney tells me that they intend to continue to litigate this case. I did reach out to ICE, but did not hear back. They have previously posted on social media, though, saying that allegations that ICE engages in racial profiling are, quote, disgusting, reckless, and categorically false. Jana.
Well, I guess the judge sees that a different way. We've seen these complaints from people outside of this lawsuit, however, right? Several other ones?
Yes. Several law enforcement officials spoke back in January about this. That included several police chiefs, St. Paul, Brooklyn Park, Sheriff DeWanna Witt here in Hennepin County. And Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley said at the time that some of his officers, who are persons of color, were pulled over by ICE agents, and the agents only left once his officers identified themselves as police.
Officers that were, as you said, people of color. Ian, thank you so much.
You're dirt. We think you're dirt, Paul. Who is we? The West, all the superpowers, everything you believe in, Paul. They think you're dirt. They think you're dumb. You're worthless.
I'm afraid I don't understand what you are saying, sir.
Oh, come on, don't bullshit me, Paul. You're the smartest man here. You got them all eating out of your hands. You could own this freaking hotel, except for one thing. You're black. You're not even a nigger. You're an African.
Our top story today is from South Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa is on a state visit to Brazil. He met with his Brazilian counterpart, Lula, against the backdrop of the war in West Asia. Both leaders have been critical of the war involving the U.S. and Israel against Iran. Now, during the visit, Lula warned Ramaphosa that during times such as these, their defenses cannot be weak.
But I don't know if Comrade Ramaphosa realizes that if we don't prepare in terms of defense, one day someone might invade us. So this is something that Brazil needs, similar to the need of South Africa. Therefore, we need to combine our potential and see what we can produce together, build together. We don't need to keep buying from the lords of arms. We can produce.
And in defense and aviation, you are much more advanced, and we have a lot to learn from each other, and we also have a lot to show you as well.
Lula and Ramaphosa also called for de-escalation of the conflict in West Asia and condemned the loss of lives. As Brazil and South Africa seek to boost defense cooperation, they also navigate diplomatic tensions with the U.S. Both the countries are members of the BRICS group, which also includes China, Russia, and Iran. Now, Trump has called the bloc anti-American. Last year, the U.S. president even threatened the BRICS member countries with an extra 10% tariff. Since Trump returned to the White House, South Africa has been bearing the brunt of his America First policies. The country faces a 30% U.S. tariff. Trump has made false white genocide claims targeting South Africa. He even skipped the G20 summit held in Johannesburg last year and banned South Africa from attending this year's G20 meeting in Miami. Pretoria's genocide case against America's ally Israel has also been a flashpoint. Now, what has further strained ties between the US and South Africa is Iran's participation in the naval drills held off the coast of Cape Town. Though Ramaphosa said that Iranian vessels were not supposed to participate in the drill, Washington slammed Pretoria for inviting Tehran. Just like South Africa, Brazil too has been critical of Trump's radical policies. Lula has condemned Washington's actions in Latin America. Earlier this year, the U.S. military had captured Venezuelan President Maduro, and prior to that, it had launched several strikes targeting alleged drug trafficking boats in the Caribbean Sea and the Eastern Pacific Ocean. Lula had slammed Washington for crossing an unacceptable line. Lula's message to Ramaphosa is simple. In a world this volatile, countries like Brazil and South Africa must be ready because no one else will defend their interests for them. Now, for more on this, we have with us Otlatleng Morgatle, who is a senior analyst at Control Risks, joining us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Welcome to First Post Africa.
Thanks, Alison. It's always great to be on your platform.
Now, Otlatleng, Brazilian President Lula da Silva claims countries like South Africa and Brazil could face invasion without stronger defenses. How likely is this scenario, and which specific vulnerabilities could he be highlighting in today's global security context?
So I'll answer the question as directly as possible. You know, in practical terms, a conventional invasion of South Africa or Brazil is unlikely in the near term. Both countries are geographically distant from, major military flashpoints and face no real and or immediate state-based military threats. But what President Lula is really highlighting here is, the declining defensive readiness from both countries, in both countries rather. In South Africa's case, for example, defense spending has steadily declined as a share of GDP since the year 2000, which has placed pressure on the South African National Defense Force's ability to maintain its equipment and its operational capabilities. So, for example, parts of the Air Force's Gripen fighter fleet have been grounded at times due to funding constraints, while the Navy has also struggled to keep its vessels consistently operational. So this is less really about an invasion tomorrow as such, and more about whether middle powers like South Africa Africa and Brazil can, maintain credible defensive readiness in what is indeed a more uncertain global system.
Right. And Lula has also suggested that Brazil and South Africa should combine their capabilities and reduce their reliance on foreign arms suppliers. Could deeper defense cooperation between the two countries realistically strengthen their individual military capabilities and capacity?
I would say that there is some potential for cooperation, particularly on the defense industrial side. That's a side where both nations tend to shine, let's say. Brazil has an advanced defense manufacturing base, especially in aerospace, as President Ramaphosa mentioned, while South Africa has historically developed pretty strong niche capabilities in areas like armored vehicles, missile systems, and defense engineering, particularly through the state-owned defense company Denel. In that sense, yes, cooperation could focus on, for example, technology share or joint research, but both countries, we must remember, are a whole, ocean apart. So while cooperation, could strengthen their defense industries, it is unlikely to dramatically rather transform their military capabilities, at least in the short term.
And both leaders have criticized the United States and Israel over the war against Iran. And they're a part of the BRICS bloc, which Washington has labeled anti-American. To what extent are these defense discussions also about geopolitics and positioning the global south more independently on the world stage?
No, that's a great question and very relevant at this point in time. There is definitely a geopolitical dimension to these discussions. There was one to this meeting as a whole. And countries like Brazil and South Africa have increasingly indeed emphasized increased strategic cooperation and autonomy among themselves and other emerging markets or other nations across the world. And within the BRICS framework, there is also a broader sort of narrative about giving the global south a stronger voice in global governance and especially in security debates such as the ongoing war in Iran right now. So, however, this doesn't necessarily translate into a so-called anti-Western alignment as such. Rather, it reflects, the acceptance of a shift toward a more multipolar world, where countries are indeed seeking greater strategic flexibility at a time when global leadership itself is increasingly fragmented.
Yeah. Dr. Lang, thank you for being with us on First Post Africa.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Alison.
The movie General Patton.
Oh, right.
George C. Scott. All real Americans love the sting of battle. Yeah.
With the flag in the background. That's yeah. Great movie. That's
God help me, I love it so.
Right.
All them dead people piled up there. So much, boy, this is fun.
Yep. I mean, that's
And then go ridicule a black person for doing something like eating a watermelon. I mean, he's out there killing people by the bushel. That's what he said, kill them by the bushel.
This war has already left a trail of death. But even on that bloody trail, one incident stands out. The attack on a girls' school. It happened on the first day of the war. You see, Saturday is a working day in Iran. So when the fighting started, schools were in session. One such school was in Minab. It's a city in southern Iran near the Persian Gulf. This school shared a wall with an Iranian military establishment, specifically an Iranian Guards base. This base was hit by missile strikes on day one of the war. And when the dust settled, the damage became evident. It wasn't just the base that was destroyed, the school was hit too. More than 175 civilians were killed in this attack, and most of them were children. Girls who came to school for lessons, girls who had nothing to do with this war. Their tiny body bags lined the hospitals in Minab. Their grieving relatives rummaged through the remains.
This is her math book, Mahana Zari, first grade. This is her folder with her schoolwork, her homework here. What wrong has she done? Her colored pencil box is still in her bag.
Nothing will bring back those girls. Nothing will reunite those families. But do you know what they deserve? Justice. They and the world deserve to know who killed those innocent souls. U.S. President Donald Trump was asked this question, and he pinned the blame on Iran.
Did the United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war and kill 175 people?
In my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hegseth? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Still investigating?
But the only side that targets civilians is Iran.
We think it was done by Iran. Because they're very inaccurate, as you know, with their munitions. They have no accuracy whatsoever. It was done by Iran.
He says it was done by Iran. One problem, though. The video evidence disagrees with the U.S. president. Take a look at this video. It was shot from opposite the school compound. You can clearly see a missile slamming into the ground. Multiple military experts have confirmed that this is a Tomahawk cruise missile. And who uses the Tomahawk? Not the Iranians, not even the Israelis, only the Americans. The U.S. military began this war by firing Tomahawk missiles. They released pictures of the launch, and their top general confirmed it.
The first shooters at sea were Tomahawks unleashed by the United States Navy, closed in on Iranian naval forces, and began to conduct strikes across the southern flank in Iran.
Does this attack happen in the southern part of Iran? Israel was not operating in this area. Both sides, the U.S. and Israel, have clear areas of operation in this war. The U.S. is striking the Persian Gulf areas. Israel is striking the West and Tehran. So you've got two pieces of evidence against Washington. First is a falling Tomahawk. The second is the area of operations. And yet the Pentagon has not taken blame for this attack. They say they're investigating what happened in Minab. Meanwhile, the U.S. president went a step ahead. He blamed Iran without any evidence. So what exactly seems to have happened here? Reports talk about two main possibilities. One is intelligence failure, and second is munitions failure. This school was meant for the children of Iranian Guard officers. More than a decade ago, it was part of the IRGC base. Sometime between 2013 and 2016, it was separated. The school was walled off from the military facility. Did the U.S. planners miss this development? Did they not know about it? Did they think that the school was still part of the military base? That is one possibility. The other possibility is munitions failure. Just think back to America's strikes on Nigeria in December. Again, Tomahawks were fired by the U.S. Navy. Out of 16 missiles, 4 did not explode. 4 Tomahawks did not explode. They slammed into farmlands and residential buildings. So we cannot rule out a missile failure. Though frankly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how the school was hit. What matters is accountability. Just imagine if the opposite had happened. What if Iran hit an Israeli school or a Gulf college? What would happen then? Do you think the Western media would wait for video analysis? Do you think they would debate an Iranian misfire? They wouldn't. The blame would be assigned on the spot, as it should be. But because this is the United States of America, there is a whole debate and discussion. Instead of assigning blame, there is analysis. And we don't understand why. The US and Israel have already killed 1,000 civilians in Iran. They have hit 1 hospital, 2 schools, and 1 UNESCO site. Plus, look at their history. America's war on terror has killed more than 400,000 civilians. So the idea that the US military does not kill civilians is hogwash. Where America goes, a trail of blood follows. And do not get us wrong, we are not saying that Iran does not target civilians. They are firing missiles into hotels in Gulf Arab states. They are targeting cities in central Israel. The Iranians are doing all of it. So yes, Iran is also an evil war machine. The difference is the coverage. When America or Israel kills civilians, it is collateral damage. When Iran kills civilians, it's mass murder. The fact is, it's mass murder in both the cases. And if you cannot see that, you're part of the problem.
Dr. Welsing, are you familiar with the British newspaper, The Guardian? I said, yes. He said The Guardian had an article about ISIS. And that ISIS has a training manual. Is that what you said? A training manual that is to train all these ISIS terrorists. He said the training manual had a title. He said the title of the training manual is the ISIS Papers.
The FBI has identified the ODU shooter as 36-year-old Mohammed Jallow, a man with a history of ties to extremism. Jallow is a former member of the Virginia Army National Guard. He was convicted in 2016 for attempting to provide material to support ISIS. Federal investigators say he had previously traveled to Libya to meet with people linked to ISIS and even praised the deadly attacks on Fort Hood. Despite being sentenced to 11 years in federal prison in 2017, Jallow was released in December of 2024, years before his full term was up. It is still unclear why he was released early, but authorities say he has now carried out the very type of domestic attack he once plotted with undercover agents. The FBI is now leading the investigation into the on-campus attack. They held a press conference this evening giving details. Brittany Miller was there. She joins us now in the studio with those details. Brittany.
Dana, Special Agent Dominique Evans calls the students in the ODU classroom that was under attack today extremely brave for stopping the shooter from causing more harm in that class or on campus.
All of the people here at ODU, I consider our victims. This is a tragic event.
Hours after a shooter opened fire at Old Dominion University, agents from Norfolk's FBI field office confirmed the attack was terrorism.
We have confirmed reports that prior to him conducting this act of terrorism, he shouted, stated Allah Akbar.
The FBI identified Mohammed Jallow as the man who entered an ROTC class and shot 3 people, killing Professor Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw. Jallow was released from prison 2 years ago for attempting to provide material support to ISIS back in 2016.
He wanted to conduct a terrorist attack similar to that in Fort Hood, Texas.
Special Agent Dominique Evans says though this is an ongoing investigation, they don't have any information that points to Jallow being a known or ongoing problem since his release. She also says they can't confirm whether the ROTC students were targeted.
This is why we need the public support to where he may have been before this, who he may have been in contact with, if he had any other supporters, anybody providing him information.
Evans says there may have been a greater loss of life if it weren't for students confronting Jallow.
The brave ROTC members in that room subdued him. And if not for them, I'm not sure, what else he may have done.
And Agent Evans says there's no mention of the war with Iran in this attack. Brittany Miller, 13 News Now.
All right, thanks so much, Brittany. ODU President Brian Hemphill is speaking out tonight, calling today's shooting a senseless act of violence that has changed the institution forever.
I know that each of you want as much information as possible right now, and that's completely understandable. Everyone in our community wants answers, and I want to be as forthcoming and as transparent as we can. In this time of tragedy, I know that all monarchs will join together in solidarity to support each other throughout this difficult time, especially the victims and their families.
Gus T. Renegade, worthless Negro from Virginia. I have been on the campus of ODU in Virginia. Know people who went to school there and everything. Pause for the folks who are grieving and dealing with yet another incident of gun violence in this part of the world. Context of white supremacy. The victim who was killed in this shooting, non-white male. Decals. Today's date, Saturday, March 14, 2026. So I have been told. Try and review what's gone down past 7 days. We should be here tomorrow on the plantation. Normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. White guests, getting to it. We will be here tomorrow. Try to make sure I get that in. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And we should also be here on Monday, 1 hour early. I'm not too upset about that. See if we can do double duty on Monday, but 1 hour early on Monday. So that would be 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, 6 p.m. Central Daylight Savings Time, and then 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time. Shout out to my folks, Mountain Time, you'll figure it out. But 1 hour early, Monday. And hopefully, with that extra or that hour early start, we'll be able to do a double dip, 2 programs. We'll have to see. But that is for Monday. But before we get there, that Sunday, we'll be here normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Okay, so we got all that. We have been around the world since December. I said that last week, man, why does Gus T have to beg to talk to victims of racism anywhere in the world, especially here in the States, other than my less than sparkling personality? That, notwithstanding, lack of social skills and intelligence, that, a few things working against me, but still, we have been chatting it up, hopefully constructively more often than not, around the world. Just past 7 days, not even 7 days yet, really, but since the top of the week, we had Eric Kaufman as a guest on the program, joined us live from London. Now, that was a program where I said, oh, man, I was excited because I thought it was a white man talking to us about white genetic annihilation, demographic change, and all that. No, this is what I think a non-white person aspiring to be a race soldier and writing books that, hey, I can be white. I support the team. Man, I love me some white people. I got white parents too. I got a little bit of white genetic material. Man, come on, put me on the team. Put me on the team. Come on. That's what his whole body of work, everything. And I told people, go, look at his picture, see what you think. He had a few folks, I guess, who at least checked out his online images and such and said, man, I don't know if this guy would be accepted as a white person. You can look, see what you think. And then we had Dr. Sean O'Dougall on the program Thursday, 2 programs. He joined us early in the day, and we discussed his brand new book, just published at the very end of 2025, How the Irish Became White Supremacists, deliberately evoking Noel Ignatiev's book, How the Irish Became White. He has a whole chapter where he talks about that book specifically and some of the wacky, unhelpful things that Ignatiev says in that book. Ignatiev was a guest on the Cows in 2009, but that was a fascinating discussion. I can't even say offhandedly because it was very much related to racism. I started that program and I mentioned, UFC brawler, sometimes professional fighter, suspected race soldier, really accused race soldier, Conor McGregor. I mentioned him because Eric Kaufman aspiring race soldier. He had written in his book and says that, a white person from the U.S., this part of the world, would feel more at ease, more willing to have a conversation, would find it more enjoyable to chat it up with a black fella who was born in this area of the world as opposed to a white man born in France or Australia. I say, contraire, mon frère. See the French? I said, white. They don't have white American. They don't have white British. They don't have white Australian. That's not hyphenated. White is white is white. That's one. And really, you could leave it right there. But I said, man, I done seen, old Floyd, pretty boy Floyd, Mayweather. I seen when he fought Conor McGregor, super fight, made all the millions and such. Well, I don't believe they say he broke now. But I seen that. It was a whole lot of white people who were born right here. They were rooting for Conor McGregor. We talked about that. Like, wait a minute. You supposed to be with stars and stripes, man. Apple pie, man. You supposed to be. That's almost treasonous. How are you rooting for these old potato famine IRA bandits? Like, what? And I said, I've seen that sort of thing over and over. That was really the only reason that I brought it up. We just talked about that. I mean, it is Ireland, whatever. I said it. Dr. O'Dougall says, oh my goodness, it's so funny you mentioned him. You were talking about anti-black, white supremacist violence in Ireland. Oh, Conor McGregor, he was accused of instigating that very thing. And he talked about how he used his social media account and all that and led to racist white people and white supremacists in Ireland going and killing and assaulting black people. George and Kencho being one of them, 2020, same time George Floyd. But we talked about all that. Even Mr. Kaufman, where I found his book repulsive. Like, ooh. Dr. O'Dougall, not so much. I did learn quite. He had that whole section talking about Noel Ignatieff and even criticized him for many things. But one of them said, man, this dude gonna get to the end of the book. And in fact, I even appreciated that because, man, Gus T just read the worst book ever. And that was one of the same criticisms that I had. Don't you? That's for any of y'all. You hopefully will have folks who write books about counter-racism, producing justice so we can get this problem solved. We need constructive information. But do not write a book and then get to the postscript and something really important that gets to the core of what you've been talking about. And I'm going to put it in the postscript that's at the very end of the book. Like, what? Wait a minute. And I mean, it can't be particularly the type of thing where, whoa, if the reader had known this at the beginning of the book, might have changed my thought process about this whole project. But anyway, he talks about Noel Ignatieff sneaking the term racism in at the very end of the book and to sneak it in to say, don't use the word racism. Peace. Doesn't even give an explanation, no science, no data as to why we should not use the term racism. Just, it's kind of toxic and upsets some people, white people. We just shouldn't use it. Peace. And that's the end of the book. Like, what? Come on. Anyway, it reminded me of the dialogue that Noel Ignatieff came on this program and said, hey, we just stopped calling white people white. Whew. Anyway, this book, way more constructive and gives you a much better idea. And it even fondly reminded me of Neely Fuller Jr., who said the Irish were already white. Dr. O'Dougall said the same thing in his book, which is an important distinction from Ignatieff, these racial classifications and all of that. But these guys, gals were already white and just were able to move on up the system, get a little bit more power, and participate in mistreating niggers. But that's what we've been up to. Global system, doing our part. Global system. And I did not know Ireland, one of the most dangerous places in the world for black people. I had no idea. Finland is awful too. We have listeners in Finland and have had them there for years. They've been investors, some of them. Man, they have been complaining about violence in that area forever, according to white people's statistical data. The only European country that is more dangerous for people classified as black in terms of violence, Finland. Man, global system, nowhere to run. We'll be here tomorrow, normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. One quick correction, mandatory I get in. We are about halfway through Dr. Colin Anthony Beckles' victim of black mental health, or is victim of white supremacy, and then absolutely a victim, did not qualify for black mental health, victim of suicide. We're about halfway through his dissertation, Pan-African Sites of Resistance on Racism Deliberately Targeting Black Bookstores Around the World. It has been fascinating, learned so much. But he said yesterday he credited Louis Michaud with operating the first black bookstore in the U.S. That is not accurate. Strive for accuracy. David Ruggles beat him by a number of years, like a whole century earlier. He was here in dealing with the exact same problem. I should have mentioned that one of our listeners in the book club had written about this and also caught this, so I even had a reminder. Was no excuse for me to be all discombobulated and to fail to bring that up, but super important. They have whole books written about Mr. Ruggles, and we just learned about him in Shar Adams' Black Owned, The Revolutionary Life of the Black Bookstore, which is why we are reading this dissertation as a correction of sorts. But she starts off that book talking about David Ruggles and all the racism that he experienced in the 19th century, trying to get books to black people and combat racism. So, reading, very important, long history. Louis Michaud, very important as well, but not the first. Let's see, the audio reports that we heard at the beginning today. They had the report about food and exposing your children to different types of vegetables, in particular fruits and veggies. I thought that was so important, particularly for non-white people, because racists, they do so many things to make it difficult for us to access quality foods. They'll make them really expensive or put us in areas where you might have to drive 50 miles to get quality fruits, veggies, or they might, put a grocery store there and they just don't have fruits and veggies for us. Lots of, goes on and on and on. And we are conditioned those yummy Cheetos and tater chips and all that nonsense. So, can't stress enough, when you have children, one, work on your diet before you get to the bedroom. That would be massively helpful. That can be something, hey, let's get rid of all the junk food before we get to the bedroom. Let's throw out all the sodas, the Cheetos, the Snicker bars. Let's throw all that in the trash, the Chips Ahoy. Let's throw all that out. Get our diet correct. Then when we get these little munchkins running around, as they say, they'll say, oh man, we don't even have no Snickers, and we can pretend we never ate any of that stuff. That would be one. And then when you get the children there, since you don't have that stuff around, you're breastfeeding, right? And then fruits, veggies, nuts, natural, healthy foods, not all that ultra processed garbage and Lunchables and chicken nuggets and McDonald's and French fries. Like, try and really make it. And if that's what you eat all the time, that's why I said before you get to the bedroom, like, hey, let's be serious. I remember Dr. Kamal Kamban, where he said, I'm not going to put the name on it because this person is still alive and doing constructive work that is needed. But he said, man, and he agreed, man, such and such, this person is doing constructive work. We need like 100, 500 more of this person. But man, this person does not take care of themselves at all. They are going to end up having health problems where they're going to be gone, and we need them. Like, we need 500 more of them. And man, like, we got to take care of ourselves. And he wasn't, saying this to be nasty or mean. He was, he wrote a whole book about eating correctly, and saying that racists, they bamboozle us with that food thing, and particularly getting them young. So we have to be equally active, and I thought that was really important, especially with the fruits and vegetables. I do not have children, but I can say, having been around very young children, what they said is true. The trying repeatedly, and even before, I've said this before, what you eat is massively important. You talk all day long and whine and beg about them carrots or broccoli or whatever else you want them to eat. If you are eating Cheetos and Snicker bars, it is a wrap. They are going to eat Cheetos and Snicker bars. It's not even nothing to discuss. If you are eating broccoli and carrots and Brussels sprouts and bok choy, they are going to eat broccoli and Brussels sprouts. I have seen this. It doesn't even matter. I was around children, young children, I mean like 1, 2. I drank smoothies with that's another one. I said, I've been saying that for years, like people, trying to transition plant-based. Get a good blender. You can sneak all kinds of fruits and veggies that you don't even have to tell them. They will be gulping it down. You don't even have to tell them. And you can do this for years. Most people I know, they will do a smoothie, and even 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and the main thing, they see you drink. I have seen that over and over. It doesn't even matter really what you are eating or drinking. If you guys, I want them. So you have to eat healthy, nutritious food, not the chips, Cheetos, all that nonsense, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, whatever, but eating real food, fruits and veggies. If you are excited about eating fruits and veggies, they will be a lot more enthusiastic and willing to try fruits and veggies. Now, what they said about trying repeatedly, awesome. Pairing them with things that they like, awesome. Make a little appetizer of the veggies, awesome. And then we get to the main entree. Great suggestions. And even I would even remind them, bring it back to racism. Now, this might not work at 1, 2. Hopefully you've established a nice pattern of eating correctly, healthy foods. So by the time they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever the case may be, they already love veggies, and maybe even do a little cooking as well with you. That also is a tremendous suggestion, age appropriate, of course, but cook with your children. That's something I think I've talked about before. Like, oh my goodness, you can have them even just small things. If it's rinsing off some of the vegetables, you might not, depending on their age, you don't want to give them a knife, but they do have even knives that are safer that you can give, where they can do some of the easier, not too difficult cutting with a knife, learn some knife safety, and not lose a finger or anything. But they can wash vegetables and just do little things where they can be a part of the kitchen process, and certainly going to the grocery store to pick out different vegetables. Like, oh man, you haven't tried one of those before? Like, oh wow. Or even different colors. Like, oh wow, they got purple broccoli this time. Like, I know you didn't like it was green, but it's purple. They don't even have purple broccoli. That'll be crazy. We got to get it. I think the person, when they talked about playing with your food, not food fights and throwing it all over the place, but making designs, decorations, even what I just said with colors. You can be really creative with that. They have cookie cutters. Not that you have to make cookie cutters, but you can make different designs and what have you, even with the veggies. Even just the way that you cut them sometimes can just be a little bit more creative, and how you offer up vegetables, spiralizer. Just, you can be super creative. It does not just have to be boiling broccoli and throwing it on the table. It can be a lot beyond that, and most importantly, to make them tasty. Let's see, but cooking with your child, super helpful. As age appropriate, I would tell them, white people do not want us to eat fruits and veggies. I would tell them, like, I didn't have anyone explain that to me, but that is true. I would tell them, racists, they do not want you to have longevity. They want to see black people suffer, be in poor health, have poor quality of life, and die young as soon as possible, really. To combat that, as opposed to what they want, us eating at McDonald's, us eating from the Dollar General, us eating potato chips, Cheetos, eat healthy foods. And I would even explain it to every time you go get that Snickers bar, Whitey wins. Every time you go get those Cheetos, every time you get that DoorDash and I need that quarter pounder, I need that Big Mac and some chicken nugget, Whitey wins. Every time you go get that broccoli, because they fought hard. And you can tell them, all of this is true. You can go get books and everything. This is true. This is not crazy talk. You don't have to say whitey, racist, whatever, but racists do not want us, black people, non-white people, to have healthy foods. They have put in tremendous effort for years for us to eat Cheetos, McDonald's. We don't want to do that. And the results, I would even say, hey, every time you think, I want that Snickers bar, I want some ice cream, give me that Breyers. Hey, talk to some of your relatives. Just even pay attention to some of them. See how many of them outlive D'Angelo's 51. Didn't we hear Wakanda mentioned? I thought somebody mentioned Marvel's Black Panther and Wakanda in the segments today, right? Man, Chadwick Boseman, 44. See how many of your black relatives outlive Boseman D'Angelo. See how many of your black relatives have health problems. See how many of your black relatives have health problems that are in some way related to diet. That's what I would be telling my offspring every time you sit down at that plate. Counter racism, or we are helping the system of white supremacy racism, because it might not even be a plate. We may be cracking that bag of chips open. You don't need a plate. Or you get the DoorDash, you get the McDonald's, or they said in the segment, you get that frozen dinner. Boop, what I say, we got a whole 2-3 generations. What's mealtime? Boop. That's the microwave. That's the microwave. That's the microwave. Racists win. I would explain it to them that way, man. That's it. That's the way that you're eating. Boop. That's the way that you're eating. Racists are winning. Period. Fresh foods, vegetables, fruits, and try to eat as many of them as you can, often. A wide variety, and encourage that from a very young age. They got that we had talked about that. You're pregnant. That's why I keep saying, really, a lot of this comes down to mom and dad and being serious. That's why we don't qualify as parents. But being serious. You're not eating Cheetos. You're eating bok choy, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. Hey, a lot of this becomes substantially easy, especially because at least for the first 14 years or so, I don't know too many children that buy groceries. So if you are eating correctly, a lot of this will take care of itself. Let's see. And then all you have to do is explain why we're eating this way and, you know, racism, white supremacy, justice. Let's see. The portion where they talked about willpower, I thought that was massively important as well. I could have played Dr. Welsing right there because she talked about being addicted to looking at those screens. I've said for years, as there's so much research, many other people, we've had guests who talked about this, all that TV watching is not just bad for one thing. It's like a myriad of things. They advertise all that bad food. I've said for years, they generally do not advertise, you know, Brussels sprouts on TV. Bok choy, broccoli. Generally, it's McDonald's. The potato chips, the Cheetah, the stuff that we should not be eating. That's generally what they advertise. And even when they're not advertising it, that's what they're advertising, because when they have all the shows and goofiness, that's what the people are eating. Pizza and cheeseburgers and fries and all the rest of it. So, minimizing the TV watching is tremendous, and even beyond willpower, so many of the foods are addictive and designed to be addictive, so that you have to eat a whole bag of the chips, or 15 bags of the chips, or 20 Snicker bars, or whatever it is. And, you know, 10-year-old, 8-year-old. Bay Area mom, she was telling us about I was going to say little fella because of his age, but I mean, dang, he's only like 7, 8 years old, but he weighs like 150 pounds. It might even be more than that because he's been gaining weight. But she was telling us he would get those Hawaiian sweet rolls, which I used to love and devour. But he would get I think it's like a dozen of them, and I think just one of those rolls has like your entire daily allowance for sugar. Like, I mean, but he would have like the whole rack, a dozen, and not in like a week, in like one day. I mean, for like one meal setting, I'm gonna eat all 12 of these. It's like a 7-year-old, like, what? And that's not even all I'm going to eat today. That's just all I'm going to eat for this little, 1 hour setting. I'm going to eat when I get home. I mean, that's sad. That's what I said before. You are not going to live very long on that trajectory, especially starting that young. You're not going to live very long. You're already set up for diabetes if you don't have it already. And then particularly at that young age, oh my goodness, all the health complications and everything that you're set up for, racists already know. Got them. Are you even going to have the vitality to replace white supremacy with justice, which will take time and energy? Even take what I just said, the little fella that keeps the 150-pounder that Bay Area mom told us about tragically. Hold that for a moment. Neely Fuller Jr. just left us last year tragically. He lived to be almost 100. Talked about correct eating. Imagine if he had, I'm going to just wolf down ice cream whenever I feel like it. White didn't got on my nerves and I'm stressed. I'm a privileged black male. I'm going to eat KFC. President Trump. I'm going to eat KFC whenever I feel like it. They got great mashed potatoes and gravy. I'm just, do what I want. I earned it. I've been here. And that's how he'd live. And say he just lived to be 77. Which, hey, I just told you, Chadwick Boseman, D'Angelo, my gosh, 77, I would have loved that. And I'm sure all of their loved ones would love that too. But man, if Neely Fuller Jr. had only been here until 77, I think he would have had 0 visits to the context of white supremacy. 0. And wouldn't have been no word guide. And wouldn't have been no update to the code book. I think we would have had a code book. We would have got that, but man, we would have missed that. Like, he was very active. 80s, 90s, 70s. That's what race soldiers do not want to. Now come back to Bay Area mom's 150-pounder at 7 years old. Now, I'm not a doctor and I'm not prognosticator. I don't know how long this person will live, but I mean, a lot of scientists, hey, you have a lot of racists. They already look 7 years old and you can't read. Woo, you're going to jail. We already know. We already got the data computerized, so I'm pretty sure you have race soldiers. They can look. You weigh how much at 7? Oh, yeah, you're going to be here until, D'Angelo was how old? 51? Diet is massively important, and I don't blame the little fella. All those sweet rolls, I mean, your brain is no match for that at all. They call them sweet rolls. They call them sweet rolls. William Duffy got that book, Sugar Blues. We did a review of that years ago. At least I can say we have talked about the importance of food and counter racism for years. Fuller did as well. Dr. Cambon, Dr. Welsing, many folks. Very important. We did read Layla Africa, Nutricide, formerly one of the worst books ever. But diet is massively important. Talk to your children about the importance of eating correctly and just explain if they whine, grouse and all of that, explain you want that greasy pepperoni pizza, especially the frozen one. That is exactly what racists want you to eat. And often, that might be the only thing that they make available for you to eat. That or some Cheetos. Let's see. The food stamp segment, that was a white woman in Minnesota. That's why I used Chris Rock, because he said exactly that. Filled up with white people, Minnesota and all that. They don't have black people in Minnesota. That segment about the white woman in Minnesota with 2 kids, no job, and they're about to take my food stamps. That was a white woman. I'm not sure how that segment would have sounded if it had been a black female. And I will say even the lie that President Trump gave, that you just walk into the social services and you just get food stamps, they just cut you a check and here you go. That is not true at all. White people have stacks of books and studies and all that you could read, for the rest of your life about how that is not true. And particularly if you live in a jurisdiction that has a high number of black people, that is particularly false. You don't get no false check. In fact, there will probably be lots of people who are qualified to get food benefits who do not get them. Even sometimes, what they call it, they used to say it, shook. They get you so scared in advance and thinking that you might even go to jail coming in to apply to get benefits, that people who do legally qualify for benefits, they are too intimidated to even go and fill out the application. Particularly jurisdictions with high populations of black people. Let's see, the segment about Tennessee, the governor, where they are going to put foster care children into these are like jail facilities because Devontae, his brother, Thoreau. Oh, remember they talked about he was stealing he wasn't stealing the pork chops, but he was eating raw pork chops. Devontae's brother. Man, who do you think, that is Tennessee, who do you think is going to the jail facility? What foster care children are going to the jail facility? What? Man, stop the production of throwaway offspring. That's one we can be massively serious about. I'm not going to contribute to no black foster child going into no jail facility or being drugged and drowned by some lesbians and they don't even find my remains. We're not doing that either. No, we did not forget you, Devontae. I think I need to go and actually get his last name from the family, because I say Devontae Hart. That's how he's known. But, like, man, that bothers me every time. Like, I'm going to have to get Devontae's, like, authentic surname so I can stop saying Devontae Hart, even though that is how he's recognized. We did not forget you, though. Let's see. The segment on pre-fire Altadena. That's where they said pre-Altadena, that's Southern California, LA, was like Wakanda for the black people. Victims guaranteed qualified. I have never been to any location in the world that was like Wakanda for black people. Like, what? And particularly, he said, Altadena. Like, what? You're talking about the area. We had Nikki High as a guest on the program. She lives in Altadena. Black entrepreneur, Octavia's Bookshelf, support the bookstore. She said, and it was confirmed in news reports, that the black people who live in Altadena, they didn't even get a warning that, hey, niggers, fire about to burn y'all up. Better run. Peace. They got a warning way late. The white people, they got a warning hours in advance. They got a warning. It was pitch black, late at night. Power had already went off. Confusion. Why is it so late? LA Times talked about this. Miss High told us about this. Is that Wakanda? We get a life-threatening natural disaster, and what is it? First fired, last hired. We get a fire, last to be notified. That's Wakanda. And Wakanda of California, they had so-called gentrification, racial dislocation, way before the fire. How are we getting booted out of Wakanda for white homeowners? What kind of Wakanda is this? I will say I was not no fan of Marvel's Black Panther. I have still not seen it. I don't do Ryan Coogler films. I've not seen Sinners either. I will root for my black brothers tomorrow. Hopefully, Michael B. Jordan, Ryan Coogler, they will walk off the stage with everything. And won't be called a nigger during the course of the ceremonies. How about that? Even if that does happen, I'm not going to watch the film. But yeah, Wakanda. That ain't, I don't know what y'all saw in the film, but nothing about that in Altadena for the black residents. That just sounds like normal system of white supremacy racism. It wasn't even incorporated. Like, man, if we ever get Wakanda, we want it to be incorporated. That does make a difference. And not subject to gentrification. Maybe we put a sundown town law in effect for white people. If we get Wakanda, like, hey, if they're allowed in at all, you got to get out of here. By say we make it 5, 4 early. You got to way early. Beat it. You can't own no property. You can't even stay overnight. Beat it. That's more like Wakanda. And they don't have nothing like that in Altadena, unless I've been misinformed. But I will listen to James Farr's program just to hear what some of the black residents are up to. Let's see. The situation in UC Irvine, which is about 45 minutes away from LA, where a black student, senior, he was leaving a cookout, was accosted by a gang of e-bike riding race soldiers, and there was a white female in the group, it said. I thought that was important. We cannot, the man and the woman, could have been racist child too, they could have been younger, who knows. But he said, I'm just leaving the cookout. And they even added, they said it was Black History Month, as though they think that might have been relevant. We ain't going to let Carter G. Woodson's event pass and not get a chance to smack a few niggers upside the head. Said they went out and called him a nigga with the A on it. And what are you doing here? Why are you uptight and all that stuff? I can only say he did the correct thing. Run. Now, maybe he should have, ran earlier. I don't know, but it sounded like he was trying to get away. That's what the recommendation. Anytime someone has called you a nigger or anything like that, white person, it is no discussion. Get out of there. Get out of there immediately. I'm not looking for assistance or anything else. Get out of there. They could have had a gun, weapon, knife, anything. Just outboard looking for a nigger to beat up with a white woman. And they did make at least one arrest in that case, so I will follow to see. Hopefully they get the white woman as well. And then we maybe get the ages for all of these folks and see what type of punishment is meted out. This would be another. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, I even have to pause here. The black person victim of racism, and I'm not criticizing at all. He was terrorized. We need black person trying to do something constructive. Said he's a senior in college, trying to graduate, go out and do something with my life. Need more of that. He said they called him nigger and all these racial slurs and everything else, and he said, honestly, stuff I never expected to hear. We have not been on our assignment. There is no way that a black person, I'd say particularly a black male, there is no way you should be saying, especially if you're like 20, you're over 20 years old, saying, oh man, I never expected anyone to call me a nigger. What? Why did you think? Did you grow up in Wakanda? Like, what? Why did you think that? You never expected to be a victim of racism? Really? Why? Do you think racism exists? Oh, okay. Racism has never been a problem for you? Wow, that is. We have not been on our assignment. If you are going to produce a black child, you shouldn't have the Snickers in the household. You should be talking to your child about racism so that they are not stunned. They are not surprised. I thought he was going to say our phrase, it is 2026. I cannot believe that people are behaving and talking this way. We have not been on our assignment, like not at all. Not even close. Almost unanimously. Like a few exceptions, but almost unanimously, we have not been on our assignment. Let's see. You know who has been on their assignment? Joseph McMeans Jr. In fact, you can even contrast the two. I thought it was significant that the UC Irvine victim, he had to run into the Rosa Parks dorm. Like, man, we ain't made no progress. Fast forward 50 years, he had to run into the George Floyd dorm to escape the race soldiers. They were going to castrate him. Let's see, the section who has been on their assignment, Joseph McMeans Jr. Now, they didn't go terrorize black people. I got all that. But Joseph McMeans Jr. and Jamarian Jones Snap, at 15 years old, we're going to go rob these beaners. They ain't got access to no banking. Probably ain't got no green card. They're going to have lots of liquid cash. Let's get them. Who is ignorant about racism? At 15. At 15. One, I know racial classifications, so I can pick out. I know a white person with a tan and a beaner. Two, I know as a result of the system of white supremacy racism, I know you over here, you done been picking strawberries and lettuce. They paying you under the table. I know you're going to have a stack full of cash in your wallet, and we want it all at 15. We're not even talking about folks like, oh man, I got 3 children. They about to take my food stamps. What we going to do? Can't even pay my rent. I know. We'll rob Gomez. That's not even what we're talking about. You are in the 10th grade. What? Who is ignorant about racism? We're going out to rob undocumented non-white people at 5th. If ICE don't get you, little Joseph gonna get you. 15-year-old Joseph. Come on. White people are dangerous. Now, I'm not saying that the non-white people that they wanted to rob, I'm not saying that they love black people or about counter racism at all, but I mean, dang. Do you think that's something that black people should pay attention to? Wow. The 15-year-olds are using their knowledge of racism, white supremacy to strong-arm rob non-white people. Is that something people classified as black should pay attention to? No, that's them old Latino, but that ain't got nothing to do with Victims guaranteed qualified on that one as well. The section, the young lady in Chicago, Jada. She said she was at the transit stop. There were other people there. A white man, Mr. Barron, suspected racist. He came up making racist comments about niggers, even importantly, where your guns at, niggers, where your guns at? Very important. That would make me think this person might be armed, is looking to instigate something. But he's doing all this. Then he goes and he physically attacks this black female, Jada. And she said what hurts the most is that there were all these people around, even other males around. No one intervened. We talked about this explicitly and even within the context of Chicago, but the location doesn't really matter. But we talked about all of this explicitly with Neely Fuller Jr. It is in the archives. In fact, we had multiple conversations about this. Now, Fuller said from the archives, you should not have an expectation. Male, female, child, you should not have an expectation that others in the public, that they're going to intervene on your behalf if some sort of violence erupts or what have you. That should not be your expectation at all. In fact, what he said, hey, someone starts, Negro, leave immediately. You are in a dangerous environment. Things could turn lethal in like seconds. Leave immediately. Now, in fact, I can even give this scenario where we talked about this, because there were several incidents, but one specifically. There was a black female stopped at a gas station. She goes to get gas. There's a white female, white man present. White female, whatever reason, starts calling the black female names, all this, whatever. The black female doesn't respond, doesn't say anything, doesn't get involved, or, retort or anything of that nature. She's going about trying to get her gas. The white female deliberately spills gas on the black female while calling her names and such. She has, I believe, a white man present with her. Things escalate where the white man ends up punching her. They're at a public gas station, so there's another white man present. He hops off, hey, what are you doing? And he gets into it with this white man. So she reports it to the gas station attendant. Police get called, all of that. The victim who got assaulted in this case, she said that there was a black male who was in his vehicle, I guess, where all this happened, and she almost said the same thing. He didn't intervene. He was upset. We had listeners who talked about this, and some listeners said same thing, like, what a disgrace. How do you call yourself a male and you're supposed to intervene and defend? Where's your honor? Where's your pride? Blah, blah, blah. Presented this to Mr. Fuller. In the archives, 2012, he said, the black male who did not intervene, he did the correct thing. Reason, explanation. He said, hey, you have no idea. In fact, he even started off, he said, these things happen. You aren't even paying attention. Like, I didn't come to get in no altercation. I'm not security. I'm not vigilant to see if something is going to break out and I'm going to go stop. I'm here trying to get my bag of pretzels or get my Newport cigarettes or get my matches or get my gas or whatever. I'm playing on my phone and I'm not even paying attention. I look down at my phone. What you going to eat for dinner tonight? Get the Brussels sprouts, no cheese. I look back up and the black female's been punched. Like, what? What's going on? Oh, man. He said, no, that is not go. And you don't know if the white person who socked her, is this an enforcement officer? I go intervene and now I'm going to jail too? Is this a gang member and they got a whole car full of gangsters with guns and they were just waiting? You have no idea what this scenario is. He said, if anything, you call the police, you could do that and take notes. He said, exactly. He can be an excellent witness. He said, the most you can do, ma'am, get out of here. Let's go. Get in your car or get in let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We have got to get out of here. That is what to do. Not move. How did he say in there? If the white man wants to intervene, that is a white man. That's exactly what he said. He can handle it. That's a white man. He can handle it. Let him intervene. He can deal with the repercussions when the police are called and all that. You might have to go to court tomorrow and all that. You, man, as a black person, no. And as soon in that report in Chicago, when they said Mr. Barron, Edwin Barron, the race soldier who came and threatened everybody at the bus stop, for a white man to even come and start off with, hey, niggers, where your guns at? I would be thinking, I think this white guy is armed and he is looking for some, hey, I was standing my ground and they, came out and were threatening and I thought I was standing my ground. That's what I would be thinking. He is looking to provoke something. She said she thought he had mental problems. Hey, I don't know. She was there. She witnessed it. She would know better than I. I generally do not just concede and say that a white person is crazy or suffering from some sort of mental ailment because they're practicing racism. Like that's, I think that's often a convenient and inaccurate excuse, justification, and a lame one at that. Either way, he's dangerous. I'm not going to tangle with him. And does he have enforcements? Does he have a whole nother gang of crazy or racist white people who are just waiting around the block? Now, if anybody jump in, we're going to take this whole bus stop out. You don't know. Get out of there. And you do not have any sort of expectation. Fuller said that too. We haven't made no agreement. Talking about black people, we are not members of no race. We have not made no agreement. I'm going to protect you and you're going to protect me. And we can't even make an agreement to not name call each other. You do not have no sort. Now, if this is your spouse, your care mate, that's a different thing. These are strangers you ain't met before. Like, oh my God, maybe they're all married to white people. Like, who knows? Like, united, independent. When you step out of your house, step out of your residence, step out, go into your day, united, independent. I say this when you go on the job, you should not be thinking other black people got your back. And no, not at all. I wouldn't care if I'm a black female and I'm here and there's 50 black dudes here. And a white man comes by, count nigga this, nigga that. No, I'm not thinking that they all, look here, black sister, we got your back. And we gonna. That would be great. That would be awesome if it happens. Kudos to them. There's lots of evidence where it has happened. You should not be thinking that way at all. United, independent. Fuller also did say victims guaranteed qualified. For any of the black people say, I'm not going to watch no black female be brutalized, and I'm going to intervene and do the best that I can, and if I have to die on that hill, then that's how I die. Victims guaranteed qualified, and there's been a lot of illustrations of that too. Decisions, you just make a choice about which one you want to do, but at minimum, I would not have no expectation of intervention out in public, period. The big thing would be vacate immediately. Once Negro, vacate immediately. This might be a white person. I came with the intention of killing a Negro. Let's see. And even have to get in. The other thing was Fuller emphasized, you do not, these incidents of violence, you have to be thinking, me going to intervene, I'm willing to die in 5 seconds. That's what you have to be thinking. Not, oh, this is going to be cool in school. You're not putting it. I'm willing to die in 5 seconds. I'm willing to go to jail for the next 20 years based on what happens in 5 seconds. I'm willing to take a life in the next 5 seconds, and then all of the ramifications of that for the next 5 years, what I just said, might be 20 years, who knows. But oh yeah, I'm signing up for all of that gleefully. That's how you have to think. He said that's very different from, I had a plan. I left my house with a counter-racist plan. These racists are going to die today. And that was my plan. He said that changes the equation so much when this was my plan as opposed to I am responding to somebody else's plan for violence. I didn't come to the gas station for no counter-racist dispute, for no mortal combat. I came to get a bag of pretzels. Gas. Escape. That's the big thing that we should be on. Get out of there. Get out of there. Get out of there. And early, as soon as, hey, Negro, get out of there. Get out of, catch the next bus. Catch the next bus. Not blaming the victim there either. Just these would be my recommendations. We're in a system of total terrorism at all times. Let's see. The segment, I can't say race soldier for the officer because I'm not sure. Akala, the officer in Missouri, Julian Akala. I can't say race soldier just because I'm not sure. But he's definitely not a black person. Former officer in Missouri who they said he had like hundreds of pictures where he was stopping these people. I would love to know the racial classification of the people he was stopping. But either way, he's stopping all of these people and going through their phone and getting their nudes. One, for years I've said, you get stopped by the police and they ask, can I go through your car? Can I search your pockets? Go through your trunk? Can I go through your phone? The answer is, officer, ma'am, sir, I know you're just doing your job, but I do not consent to any searches of my person, property, vehicle, phone without a warrant. Nothing else to say. I'm going to take it. Sir, ma'am, I know you're doing your job. I do not consent to any searches of my phone, vehicle, property, person without a warrant. There is nothing else to say. You do not give an enforcement officer your phone voluntarily just because they stopped you for a moving violation. They say you're speeding or, I don't know, you didn't have a seatbelt on or whatever. You double parked. You do not voluntarily give them your phone or, sure, go through my trunk. I don't have, what? No, 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 no. For everyone, I would say maybe we should not keep nudes in our phone. Just, I've heard lots of examples, and they even had an attorney at UW. They were giving a talk on anti-racism suggestions, and they were talking about police using various techniques, I guess, to knock the phone out of people's hands so they can find different nefarious ways of illegally taking someone's mobile device, and then they can rifle through it and get your nudes or contacts or all of the above, I guess. Maybe the password and all that is not enough. Maybe don't store nudes or other sensitive information on your phone. Unfortunately, the times that we live in, like, that might be something you want to keep stored. I mean, hey, do what you do. And I know people do, take pics for lots of reasons, weight loss and all of that. But spouse, all of that, great, nothing illegal. But might be the sort of thing that we don't have as much privacy as we think. Maybe keep those in a safer location. Apparently, police do a lot of the tricks to steal phones. I would love to know the racial classification of the people that this officer stopped. Is this like a Daniel Holtzclaw type thing, where I just go stop all the black females and non-white females that I want and then snatch their phone or whatever? Let's see. I guess the last thing I'll say, the situation at ODU is I've been to ODU. I know people who graduated from ODU. Go Monarchs. And it was a non-white male who I thought, when they put the pictures up, the victim who was shot in the attack and killed, I thought this was a black male. They said, no, he's Indian. And his last name was Shah, so, I guess. But, I mean, if you had told me his name was Leroy, I'd be like, oh, man, that's sad. Leroy got shot. But they said, no, he's an Indian American. Either way, non-white male was one of the victims at ODU, or the one casualty. Was 3 people shot, as I understand it, and then the one casualty was this non-white male. And then they said that the alleged perpetrator, non-white male, Mohammed Jallow, was killed on sight. And then they had that strange language of how they said that he was rendered unalive. Like, what? I even had, how was he rendered unalive? And they said that he was stabbed, but then they didn't give any other details on, what happened with all of this. All of that I found so bizarre. I am looking for more information about all of this. I find it important that they're saying that the suspect in this case, they're affiliating him with ISIS, so-called. And then he had a history with the National Guard. Even though he had an honorable discharge. So some sort of military type history. And then allegedly being engaged in all of this and support of ICE. He had that arrest before. I just find all of it. And this is in the area of Virginia, Northern Virginia, that is like 12 miles from Quantico. This is like the national security defense hub of this part of the world, like the FBI and CIA and all of that. Is literally, it's like 12 miles from where all this happened. And this is very close, the area where the black male, Brian Cole, who was just arrested for those pipe bombs in January 6th, he lived in the same area, also a black male, saying, oh man, was upset, needed something to be done because I'm just dissatisfied with both the parties. Like, man, they'll be able to say it was a whole little nexus of lone wolf Negro males engaged in all of these terrorist activities in, well, I can't say, because they're saying the pipe bombs is 2021, but they're able to say, man, we got, 21st century Nat Turners in Virginia. What's going on? And right next to, the FBI and CIA hub. I'm very interested to get more. And how did he die? I'm very interested. More information. It's not, at minimum, if it's not black on black crime, it's non-white on non-white crime, because he killed another non-white person who, to me, looks like he could be a black male. I would like a lot more detail. And they're saying he's affiliated with ISIS. I would like a lot more details about the ODU attack. Timed exact same time as the attack on the synagogue up in Michigan. I don't think that was a black male, they're saying, but that's new report as well. But I would, lots more details, especially folks in Virginia. Local details on all of this would be grand. What's happening with all of this and what background information they give us on Mr. Jallow. Any hoodles, as I said, don't feel like I have to do all that begging, talk to non-white people in this part of the world, see if folks have anything to share on what happened this week, star 6-1, or the food component, if we have any parents who figured out what to do with getting veggies to their children. Number one would be eating them yourself and starting to do this before you have the children. Not buying Cheetos and chips would be massive as well. The children might be very, and especially if you all don't do all that TV watching, your children might be, 10, 12 before they realize what potato chips are, especially if you don't do the school thing. If you can homeschool your children, it might take a long time before they realize what potato chips are and Snicker. They don't even know, what is this? Potato chip. What is that? Like, hey, success. We have done it. We have done it correctly. Sodas as well. Can't say that. The sodas, the chips, like, man, see if you can just get water. Get them so they're accustomed to drinking that they don't think that is bizarre or goofy, and water. They don't see us going to Starbucks and drinking all those sugary, crazy beverages. Water. And that also they make difficult for black people all over the world to access, black and non-white people to access. I would explain that as well. I would expect Flint, Newark, you can run to and go globally, South Africa, all over the world. They make it difficult for non-white people to access water. You can get sodas. You can even get them in the schools. You can get you a Coca-Cola. Water. Even Milwaukee, I bet you they got soda machines in the school. You can't get no lead-free water at the school. I'd explain it to them just like that. That's why. Water. And none of the processed foods. Regular fruits, veggies, nuts. And do some cooking with your child. I said that before, man. Do some cooking with your child. You can make bonds. People did that forever before we did all the boop and DoorDash. People used to cook. That's another thing. We got like disdain and do all that cooking and washing dishes and all of that. Like, man, there's a value to that. Spending time together. You could actually talk about racism, or at minimum, you could talk about food while you all are cooking and why we are eating this stuff. Why are we checking all these vegetables? We could just get the DoorDash or microwave something. That's what racists want us to do. That is not even healthy eating. Plus, it's good to touch. Where is your meal coming from? What does a potato feel like? What is it supposed to feel like? But they didn't chemically altered everything and all that. Like, it is so important. Get in there and do some cooking with your children. Like, that is massive bonding experience. Like, that can be something that they can remember when they have children. They can be recipes that you pass down, healthy, constructive eating habits. And they said, if you and your child cook this together, they will be way more vested in trying it once it's done. And I know that almost always is the case. I can remember pretty much everything. If I've cooked, even back to being a child, if I participated in the cooking process, I want to see. Let's see what this comes out like, just out of curiosity and all that effort that we put in and messing up the whole kitchen. So cook with your child. That is a way better experience, I think, than probably even going out to dinner or certainly DoorDashing or microwaving with your child. Like, cook with your child. That's it. We'll be here Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Get back on our regular schedule since we've had all these folks on from all over the world and early times and out of our time zone and such. We'll be here normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And then on Monday, okay, so Monday, it'll be an hour early, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific for Monday. And have to see how things go. Might have our double dip for Monday. That'll be the payoff for not do it or starting an hour early. That way I get a little extra time to see how I can navigate by Monday. But that'll be Monday. Looking forward to it. To hopefully constructive March of broadcasting all over the world, even get back to getting some domestic stateside guests as well. That said, invest, hit the blog, racism-notes.blogspot.com, racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button in the top right corner. You'll see the links for Cash App, Venmo, PayPal beneath the button. Much obliged for all the folks who have invested, kept us on the air for 17 years, hopefully worthy of your time and energy. The link for the Amazon wish list is also right beneath the PayPal button. It is listed under Gus T. Renegade. Much obliged for all the folks who've nabbed an item or 12 from the list over all of these years. Hopefully the cows has been worthy of your time and energy. That said, sobriety would be best. We need high-functioning brain computers to solve our problems. Even the food that we eat impacts the brain computer. Talked about that, a terrible thing to waste. You are what your grandparents ate. Lots of different ways that we've talked about that. Try to eat healthy foods so that we can have those high-functioning brain computers to crank out solutions, solve the problem. And certainly, in addition to eating healthy foods with your offspring, talking to your children honestly about white supremacy, racism, what it is, how it works. Should not be black children in 2026. It should be the numbers of black children saying, I did not expect to be called racist names and insulted. And it should be low numbers of non-white people, individuals classified as black, saying things like that. We recognize we are in a system of white supremacy, racism, and expect for things like that, incidents of racism, all their different forms, we expect things like that to happen. That's it. No blaming of Jada or any of the victims in the segment, giving out suggestions, certainly suggestions. If you are out in public, that is a suggestion we have given out for years, and in the same context as well. If it's happen to be a black female, black male, black child, if you are out in public and someone starts coming out, white person, nigger this, racist slurs, and threatening, it is immediately get out of there. I would encourage make a police report as well so that gets documented, and hopefully they can arrest someone, at least get it documented about what's happening in the area. Maybe they'll increase police presence and contact any of your attempted family members and all that as well. But exit immediately. I'd say even that, it's a lot of incidents where people will be out in public and some random white person will, start yelling nigger this and practicing racism against black people or non-white people, and there will be an urge to confront or to kind of stay and, let's record, maybe we can get some footage we can put on, Instagram or what have you. I would resist unless, like you came with an agenda of having some sort of confrontation with a race soldier, unless that was on your agenda for the day, March 14th, I would really discourage. Like, once that has happened, and because I've seen so many situations where within seconds, in less than 5 minutes of some white person, nigger, and I mean random, not someone that they had like a years-long vendetta with, someone that owed them money, random incident, and within minutes, now we got court cases and thousands of dollars spent, and somebody lost their job. Someone is dead. I have seen so many incidents like that. As soon as you hear, what, you black people, get your, it is time to go. If I'm out in public, Go inside, go someplace if they have, I think this is during public hours, go inside if they have security present. Let them know immediately what has happened. But it is time to go immediately. Exit, exit, exit. It is terrible that we have to be in this sort of position, but I mean, man, this is the system of white supremacy racism. It is dangerous. Even the white children, they were 15. We're going to do a strong arm robbery on Roberto. Danger. That's it. Mañana, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for Sunday. Should have our white guest. And then we'll do it again on Monday, 1 hour early. Creator, we ask that you remind us. Stop saying not all white people are racist. Remind us, stop saying, stop name-calling people who are classified as black. For the foster care children might be going to some sort of jail facility. Stop producing throwaway offspring. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim.
Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.